move forward, and it's time to talk some boxing. And it's about to get a little heated, I guess, for some of you, because I don't play the favorites game. I don't play the promotional favorites game. I don't do any of that. I'm an actual boxing insider, a media member, somebody of that nature. So I have to have the fair assessment of all this stuff. And from what I can see here, the WBC ordered a fight. They've been ordering fights for the last 2 years. Has anybody really taken them seriously except for Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder? Because you have to understand the WBC will get forceful with a heavyweight fight because they know the money that's behind it. They're not going to get that forceful with a lightweight fight. And I know a lot of you guys are like, yeah, no, they won't. Because lightweight fights do not produce the same amount of money as a heavyweight championship fight does. It doesn't produce the same amount of money as a middleweight championship fight does. It doesn't produce the same money as a welterweight fight does. Most fights that are in the lightweight division are not pay-per-view worthy when it comes to the actual scheme of things, because the division's not a pay-per-view division in reality. It's a division that's a bridge division to get you prepared for a guy who's going to be in these middle divisions later on in his career. Usually it's the beginning of a guy's career, not the end of their career. And the lightweight division has become a hotbed for a lot of the big talent in boxing, and that's rightfully so. 130 through 140 has been absolutely tremendous for the last few years, but 135 has become somewhat of a glamour division because they have the biggest names in the group. You got Tank, you had Ryan and Tio, they're now at 140. You got Haney, who's moving to 140. You see there's a little trend going there. All the big names that were at 135 are now going to 140. Guess who's entered the chat? Mr. Shakur Stevenson. And the only person there that makes it a glamour and big time division is Tank, because Tank is the biggest star in boxing right now. A lot of you guys don't want to believe it, but he is. He's a draw. He doesn't need to fight for championships. He just needs to show up at an arena and everybody's showing up right behind him, because they got to see if Tank's going to put this guy's lights out or if this guy's going to put Tank's lights out. That's how it goes. He has mastered that portion of his boxing journey. These two that are pictured have not. Okay? So when you get to this fight, there's going to be rumors that Frank turned the fight down. Shakur lowballed him. They're not in charge. The promoters are in charge. Top Rank and TGB are not cool at all. But they're willing to do business with each other if it makes sense. And this fight for both of these promotions did not make sense. They're not going to come out and tell fans that. But if you understand the game of boxing, you know that's exactly what happened. They had to tell the WBC, we're going to come up, we came up with the agreement. They had already said they're not going to do the fight. So that's how they avoid the purse bid. They made it seem like the fight was a go. They were offered a certain amount, and the promoter for Frank Martin looked at this and said that it was not time for Frank to have this fight because it's just not time. This isn't even about Frank being scared, Shakur being the biggest the boogeyman. This is more about timing. And the timing is not right for either guy. Because if either guy loses, then they have to go back down to the bottom of the food chain. It doesn't matter what you people say. You're not going to consider them in the top group anymore. You cannot risk your movement at this moment to have this fight. You have to wait. And Frank Martin is kind of jumping the line at this point. But Shakur is kind of jumping the line as well, too. They're both very talented. They're good enough to where if you had this fight for the WBC, everybody would be fairly satisfied with it. But at the end of the day, Frank Martin still needs 2 more fights before he fights in an actual real championship fight to just get him prepared for that big moment. Winning championships and defending championships is a lot tougher than it looks on TV. Shakur has already been a champion before, and Shakur has reserved the right to be able to be the first in line to get a title shot. But I feel with him missing weight a year or so ago and losing the WBC belt on the scale, you got to take a few steps back, because literally you embarrassed the sanctioning body when you didn't make weight. And so they're giving you this privilege because who your promoter is. If you just were coming in willy-nilly with independent promoter and you guys just fight on ESPN, they would have never even, you would have had to really wait for your turn. But they know that Shakur is a dynamic fighter. He's a great representative for their sanctioning body, and that's why he's able to have some control over this portion of the lightweight title. But they went after a guy they knew they weren't going to have that fight with. The WBC ordered this because they want to get fans excited, because they want to look like the good guys. But they cannot force these guys to fight. Once they say they come up with the agreement, the WBC's out of it on the purse bid part and forcing fights. They can't force a fight because they can always get somebody to pull out. And you can't really force this one because neither one of these guys are champions of that. You're fighting for a vacant belt. And when it came down to the percentages of it, when you're fighting for a vacant belt, it's no 17 and 30%. You got to split it 50-50 because you're both fighting for a vacant belt. So them saying that Frank wanted 50-50 and or he doesn't get the fight, that's not necessarily true. Frank is not going to avoid his biggest payday ever and the opportunity to win a title. That's just not going to happen. What happened is that his promoter told them no. It doesn't make sense for either side. Whenever you got to do co-promotions, you have to make sure you're making some money. And they know they're not going to make any money off of this. This is a fight that should be a pay-per-view fight because of how the market is, but it's not a pay-per-view fight. That's why it's a tough fight to make, because you got to put it at a great venue, but you want to have the pay-per-view be able to subside that great venue and take care of everything. And really, you want to put Shakur in a position to where he has a big super fight. And this fight is more of a up-and-coming tune-up fight. Even though Frank Martin still has a great opportunity to get an upset in a fight against Shakur Stevenson's a man of destiny. Let's keep it real. And Frank Martin's just somebody in the way on his path right now. And instead of putting Frank in the position to where he just came out of a tough fight, then he fights Shakur, and if he doesn't look good, all of a sudden y'all just going to say he's Arrow's boy and y'all hyped him up. Nah, you got to give this guy an opportunity to fight another top lightweight contender so he can truly prove to us that he's championship worthy. Because in his last fight, it wasn't there. I'm going to keep it real. I love Frank Martin. I know Frank Martin. I know DJ. I know all of them. But they'll even admit that it wasn't the greatest performance. And it's something that you say to yourself, if I'm handling Frank Martin, I'll tell him the same thing. No, we're not ready for that yet. We're not going to be a shiny trophy on Shakur's mantelpiece. We're not scared of the dude. We need to be prepared for the dude. That's what it is at the end of the day. And nobody's going to turn down their biggest payday. You guys don't understand boxing as much as you think you do. These guys love to get big money to do fights. They don't care. But they don't want Frank thinking with the man's mentality of an opponent. They want him to already think like a champion. So the fight just doesn't make sense right now for the money people. It makes sense for the fans, but it doesn't make sense for the people that are going to have to put their money up. And that's what it is, and that's what it's going to be right now. So don't lose any sleep over a fight that truly was never going to happen. They just ordered a fight so they could order up some excitement, so then there could be a big disappointment. I know how this game works, and this game is an ugly one. It ain't a pretty girl. It's an ugly, toothless, overweight knife fighter, 2 a.m. So we got to get this thing together. And that's my 2 cents on the Shakur Martin fiasco that's occurring now in boxing. My last words for you: don't get emotional over fights that were never going to happen. Give it about a year or two, and we'll see them. They're not even going to fight at 135. I guarantee that. All right. So with that, we're going to go ahead and take our first commercial break. And when I get back, it's time to talk some baseball. We got the Dodgers. We got the MLB Tuesday night. And we also got talking tickets coming up as well, too. So you guys stay tuned. This is the Premier Sports Betting Show, the Primetime Angles with the one and only Pop Dibiase, the Primetime Kappa. And I'll be right back at you.
Good News Only Racing Club, led by the legendary Doug O'Neill, the trainer of 2 Kentucky Derby winners, and I'll have another, and Nyquist. Also trained 2-time